And welcome to the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. I'm your host, Dan, aka smAsho. It's magnetic. Let's blast through some more data. Here's the GOES magnetometer over the past 3 days, and we saw a geomagnetic storm last night caused by a highly negative BZ component. So there was an early coronal hole wind stream kind of showed up there, and it was a largely magnetic event. Before we look at that, let's take a look at the heliospheric current sheet's polarity. Earth remains in a South Pole current sheet. There is a North Pole one on the way. You can see it showing up here in green. This green area here. The plasma is oriented to one pole or the other. And so perhaps the majority of the solar activity is going to continue in the southern hemisphere. Here's a line of sight view, and here's our coronal hole. Let's leave that on there for a quick moment. There you go. There's a line of sight view with the solar magnetogram, and here's the line of sight coronal hole view. So South Pole oriented coronal holes are the word of the day. We do see some North Pole ones rotating in here slowly in the northeast. And let's take a look at coronal holes and sunspots. Here's your 193 angstroms view. And you can see this very well-defined coronal hole right here. That is a South Pole oriented one. And a great view of this coronal mass ejection that occurred. There was a C-class flare, actually two C-class flares there. One of them did send relativistic particles to Earth, causing some polar high-frequency radio disruptions undoubtedly. It didn't last very long. Let's look at sunspots next. We've got about 9 named sunspot groups at the moment. Most of them have stayed stable over the past 24 hours. The likelihood of major flares is quite high indeed. So here's our flare monitor and our detected sunspot groups imagery. So solar flare warning continues. You'll have to watch our later videos to figure out whether or not we've got a coronal mass ejection warning. We just haven't decided yet because I haven't processed the data. The videos are basically in a live format, give or take, and we do it this way on purpose. We used to do all of our videos live, but when YouTube decided to break its own software, we decided to continue doing whatever we wanted. So here's the X-ray flux over the past 24. And you can see that M-class flare there. Was there a UFO that showed up on one of our earlier videos? Make sure you check out our older videos if you haven't, and make sure you check out our premieres coming later today. Here's a little bit of a relativistic particle spike caused by one of those C-class flares, undoubtedly. Probably this one. And it only took a few hours for those solar protons to show up as they were traveling at relativistic speeds. Next, we'll go to the real-time solar wind. Pardon the blue screen. Don't worry, it's not a blue screen of death. And you can see this very strong magnetic field and very strong negative component. So we had a BT of 16 and a BZ of negative 16. Practically all the magnetism coming from the south there. Negative 16 for the BZ component. That was enough to cause a KP6 geomagnetic storm. It was also accompanied by a minor increase in the solar wind density, as you can see here, and then it dropped down and the solar wind speed came up. This is the predecessor to a much more powerful coronal hole wind stream coming tomorrow, late in the day. And yeah, we're expecting to see a pretty major uptick in geomagnetism as a result of this coronal hole. Current conditions are about 19 protons per cubic centimeter for the solar wind density, solar wind speed 473 kilometers per second. The BTBZ has returned to a more nominal level here. KP index was all the way up to 6 there for at least about 3 hours. Each one of those bars represents 3 hours. Again, that was caused mainly by magnetism and the little increase in the solar wind density from the minor coronal hole wind stream that we saw. We can expect a more major one coming. Next, the magnetohydrodynamic pressure over the past 4 hours. It's our geospace magnetosphere moving. You can see quite a bit of pressure in the plasmaspheres. Oftentimes this area right here appears empty. Right now it's got some plasma in there, and we've got significant GPS errors. We're going to do a separate video just about that and the ionosphere later. Next, ground magnetic perturbations. And we can expect to be seeing some aurorae over the northern U.S. and large portions of Canada there. the Geospace Magnetosphere movie ground magnetic perturbations animation here is great at showing you the most likely places for induced current into the electrical grid, as well as the most likely spots for seeing the aurora borealis, or in the south, the aurora australis. So that's 4 hours of data. I'm not going to let it play through again because we don't edit the videos. We keep it raw, a la the Wu-Tang Clan. Shout out to the RZA, the Jizza, Method Man, RIPODB, etc. Next, some more about the Earth environment. This is a diagram of the solar system. Keep in mind it is not to scale. We're going to show you a 1-week solar system forecast. So full moon coming in 2 or 3 days. There's where things will be in 1 week as Mercury swings around to blow past Venus, as Venus has just blown past us. Here's a star chart. We've also drawn in the star labels here. For some reason, Deneb, the most luminous intrinsic object visible from Earth, doesn't show up. Keep in mind, this is the celestial pole star at the other end of the precessional cycle, folks. So in about 12,500 years, that will actually be the North Pole Star. Yeah, because Earth's axial wobble actually precesses like a spinning top. And of course, Cygnus is constantly orbiting Polaris. So Cygnus just swinging around Polaris. This is Polaris down here in the Ursa Minor constellation. And let's take a look at the coronal mass ejections that have been occurring as we made the video. So this is going to show you the view from stereo A and Lagrange point 1. Stereo A here on the left and the LASCO C2 here on the right. And we expect that coronal mass ejection to miss Earth to the north and west. So there's a little bit more information about space weather. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Congratulations on realizing that the channel exists. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. smAsho, signing off from the Smash News Network, least busted name in news.